So the first round of the LPL just finished. We had Top Esports versus JDG in the first round. And looking at the comments, I saw a lot of people complaining about specifically JunJia and how he play well. And I feel like the problems in JDG are a lot bigger than just one player. And it's kind of weird to see a lot of negativity around specifically jungle matchup in this game. And I want to point out some few things that I kind of thought were pretty big issues, and it was more of a team issue than just a single player issue. So one of the first things I want to point out here is the draft. We're looking at the draft right now. One of the things that was kind of weird was the fact that Xiao Shu had blind picked Varus. They early picked Varus, but they role swapped it to top blind without knowing who it would be. 369 was hovering Gragas or Jax. They ended up picking Gragas. Now, looking at these two team comps, I do think that there are some powerful picks here and some combinations that could be good. Like, for example, Ryze is a very strong mid laner. Ash Seraphine we've seen very strong in lane and how they control the map with their slows and stuns. Pantheon can be a really strong jungler. We usually see it paired with someone that can utilize the stun. So most commonly we'll see Pantheon Talia in that bot lane duo or mid jungle duo, sorry. And yeah, but right now we're kind of not really seeing too much synergy. I didn't really like this draft. I thought top esports draft was a lot easier to play. I did think blind picking Varus top was kind of weird. I think if 369 played Jax top, it would have been a lot better for top esports, but he ended up playing Gragas, and it did do quite a bit of damage and create a lot of issues for JDG. But when watching the game, we see there's a lot of points where, like, for example, like Nayo invaded JunJia level like 2, 3, and that caused JunJia issues because he gets solo killed. That's not really good. Obviously, that's bad on JunJia for dying to Xin Zhao gank. He should know how the matchup works, how the jungling path it could work, and he should be aware of the fact that he could get ganked at red buff and die. Xiaoxu dying to a gank is also pretty bad. So Nayo's doing a really good job controlling the map, being in places. But I do think that the main point that I want to highlight is how they played the 5v5s. So watching, like, for example, JDG taking Rift Herald, it was very difficult. We saw Gala and Vampire get like kind of isolated from the rest of the team, so not able to help participate in fight. People wanted to go in while others wanted to get out. For example, another time, like, it was very difficult for them to take Dragon and how to control the spacing there. Essentially, they have no one that can face check, no one that can frontline. The only way you can check our brushes is Ash E, or maybe Pantheon would have to walk forward and be able to press E in time to not take damage. The only other member is probably Honkyu. You have to, so it's very difficult for them. They kind of have a poke comp, but they're not able really to poke and create spaces because they're always late to objectives. And then when the objectives do happen and do fight, they're not able to disengage or re-engage together as a team. Them getting caught out a lot. And another one is like, yeah, so the Dragon fight's a big one. The Rift Herald fight was a big one. And it's very difficult for them to play this 5v5 team comp, where it's much easier for top esports to go in, check rushes. Like Fang Yue, job was basically to walk in, just make sure to get space, create, control. Nayo 369 is able to get huge flanks. Like, they're constantly permanently afraid of Cream's Azir, Shruma Shuffle. These things did hurt them a lot. Like, the big one, obviously the big final mistake was Xiao Shu getting TB'd on. He walked up too far forward. It was a great ward positioning by Fang Yue to get that ward flank in. But Xiao Shu walked up too far. He's playing Varus. They get Shrima shuffled on Azir, or Gala and Vampire get Shrima shuffled by Azir. It's a whole mess. They are not able to play front to back cleanly. They're not able to poke out before any of these fights, and ultimately they lose the game. I feel like this is a huge draft issue. I don't think Tabi's drafts have been good recently. This is one of the games. There's many other games where we had a Nocturne game with Rumble, which made really no sense. There's no way for them to actually synergize the champions they were picking. And JDG had synergy issues in general, and that did not help at all. So, looking at the next game. So, looking at game 2. I do think this is a clean draft gap. Like, basically, they just won draft super hard. JunJia, Honkyu, Talia, Vi combo was really OP. Xiao Shu just took a shit on 369 with his Renekton into Gangplank. I wasn't really too sure why he picked Gangplank. Supposedly it's a counter, but the way 369 played the lane, it didn't look like a counter at all. We saw some really clean dives by JunJia, some really good ganks. some really good plays by Gala and Vampire where they were completely dominating the lane on their Eclipse or Renata. It's a very strong laning duo. It makes complete sense why they would pick it here. It was really strong. And yeah, usually I don't like Calista Renata, but they made it look good. There's a clean dive at bot. There's many, like, if you look at the way they fought around, for example, Dragon, this was a very, very good way for them to play the map. Like, you can see that they had a clear identity, clear way to play. They knew who to select. They knew when to like use their abilities and combo it together. This was how the series should have played out. But unfortunately, there's just so many issues in the other games. Let's move on to game 3. I don't really have too much to say about game 2. I think game 2 was pretty clean. There's like a lot. The way they ganked and dove, it was just really well done. And the way they played around objectives, I don't really have too much to say. This is how I think JDG should look. Next up, onto game 3. I think there's a lot of good plays here. I do think the game was in a pretty winning state for the most part, except for one play, but we'll get to that later. If we look, there's a lot of good dives at bot. There's a good dive at top. Like, JunJia is pretty much all over the map, making really good plays. Sejuani synergizes as well with Ambessa and Silas. He's doing a good job making sure they get ahead. He even goes, bot lane to make sure Gala gets ahead because they're playing a Fearless Thresh. Overall, this comp is really good. It's really solid, and they should have won this game. But if you want to see some of their bad uncoordination or bad like synergy issues, you can take a look at the gank top. There's no trust in each other. The way they were trying to play, Sejuani would just go in, tank the tower, thinking Xiao Shu would finish off 369. Then he backs off, and yeah, they don't even get the kill. They have to come back and like re-coordinate and try to figure it out again. There is definitely some synergy issues going on in this team. I don't know whether it's how they shot call, how they're setting up their plays. But whatever it is, there is something going on between the players where they're not able to communicate this well or able to trust each other in a way for them to win. If we, the bot lane fight, like for example, Vampire did really well with his Thresh Lanterns and his hook to help set up his team. But even then, it felt a lot like some people wanted to go in, maybe, JunJia wanted to go in and fight. Xiao Shu expecting him to follow up, but having issues there, but Vampire having to like pull people out because he doesn't think it's a fight. He tosses his lantern in a lot, expecting people to disengage a lot sooner than the players themselves would want to. But talking about the game-losing play here, when they're pushing their inhibitor turrets, pushing past the inhibitor, basically diving onto their nexus at this point, I do think there's a lot of issues here. Like for example, Xiao Shu was still stuck in mid. He waited a really long time for his ult. The way they disengaged, like JunJia, Honky, Gala, Vampire, the way they engaged and then the way they disengaged was not it. There was something going on where they wanted to fight. They had Baron buff. They didn't really need to fight, but because there's a split push going on the map, they thought, hey, if we fight 4v4 before, Rumble is able to get back in TP, maybe we can win this fight. It was a tough call to make. I don't think it was necessary for them to make that call, but they went in anyways. It looked really messy. And you can blame, okay, maybe it's like, I guess it might be JunJia's fault for engaging, or it might be, Vampire's fault for misengaging. But overall, I do think that, like, Xiao Shu not joining is a huge issue. The way he held his ult for a very long time and went in at the very end when it was too late. These are all minor things that start to add up, and it just shows the fact that JDG is just really uncoordinated for these kinds of fights. They could have won this game. I do think JDG, looking at this game, they could have won just 3-0 if it wasn't for the game 1 draft and how this game 3, how they kind of threw really hard. But regardless, there's big issues on JDG that I believe are more player focused and coordination focused than just individual mechanic focused. Because looking at game 4, I do think that game 4 was really good. Like, I do think that, Honkyu on his Zoe did a really good job. I think Xiao Shu very strong in the top lane. Everyone I think on this team played really well in this game. JunJia had a lot of good ganks. I don't think Nio really did too much. Honky was solo killing Cream on his Zoe versus Victor. Lucian Nami, I think Gala did a good job pushing his advantages. Sometimes, pushing too far, but hey, that's what happens. It's okay. I do think that the level of aggression they showed here was really good, and they were able to win the game pretty cleanly overall. Very few issues. Like for example, when Honkyu solo killed Cream at 4 minutes, that was really good. But I think the roam times afterwards were also really good. like Hankyu to me was the MVP of this particular game. I think he did a good job in winning. I did jinx Gala a little bit. I did say Nayo wasn't doing anything, and then at 1300 minutes he does get killed by Gala gets killed by Nayo, which my bad. I'm a jinxer. But besides that, yeah, I think when you look at the game-winning play, just JDG looked really clean and they knew how to engage their fights. I mean, the bubble control by Hankyu using his bubble, the zone control, was really good. This was what I want to see from the team. Now, looking at the final game, Game 5, I just think that, yeah, JunJia took over the map with his Kiana. JunJia is famously known for his Kiana. He's played it before in LCP and LPL. I do think he's really good on this champion, so it does make sense to pair it up. They gave Hankyu his Ari. Obviously, Cream on Akali is a little bit scary, but I think the way Gala and Vampire were able to handle that was really well done. I just think overall, like the 4 players on the team, like Xiaoshu was kind of invisible in this match, but it's fine. Not, top laners are sometimes invisible. It's just how the games are set up. But overall, I think JunJia did a really good job this series. I have really not too much to say about this Game 5. It was pretty good. Like, there's some moments of issues here and there. Maybe failed gank, failed dive, but people getting caught out. I do think zone control around like objectives, especially with they use Kiana ult, or how JunJia was able to pick people off, hiding in brushes, causing people to use flashes at certain times. Hankyu's ability to follow up with his Ari was also really good. And yeah, Gal and Vampire were pretty much untouchable with their Zyra. It's overall was really good, really great. I was really happy to see this game, and yeah, I think that's how they won really hard. So overall, I don't think I see a lot of the people complaining about just one player. I really disagree. Obviously, I'm biased, right? I was on the same team with JunJia and Hankyu, so obviously I can't help be biased towards them and try to cheer them on and hope they succeed. But overall, I do think that it's a little bit unfair how people are criticizing them, how people are treating them. And I do think there are a lot of issues starting from draft all the way to team coordination that I feel like a lot of people aren't really talking about. Obviously, they're imports, so you expect them to be a tier above the other resident players. But when you're on a team like JDG, I feel like everyone should step up. This is a team that's trying to win LPL, a team that's trying to do well at internationals. You can't just expect your imports to carry you. You got to have your resident players step up. And there's a lot of moments here in this game or this series where I felt like other players misplayed. Draft wasn't clear. There was no identity. That we need to make sure that, like, basically they need to make sure that their strategy coming in, their win conditions are clear, and the players are able to play to those win conditions. Because if we're just expecting individual carry performances, like in Game 5, where essentially it's just JunJia being really good on Kiana and Nayo kind of being useless on Nocturne, if we're expecting that every game, then this team won't make it far. So I'm hoping that they're able to clean up some of their draft issues, maybe be able to have a better identity, at least have one engage tool or one CC tool on their comps so they can easily play and look for team fights. And give good jungle mid synergy, give good AD carry support synergy, and I mean give Xiaoshu champions he's good on it. And yeah, this is it. All right, thanks for watching.